If you are trying to grow your fine natural hair as long as possible, you know how much of a struggle it can be to get that hair to retain length. It breaks off so easily, it gets weighed down. We can't do certain styles because it'll break our hair and tangle so easy if we leave them in too long. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you 6 things that you need to eliminate from your routine in order to see length retention on your fine natural hair. What's up, Kylies? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Kiki, and if you are new here, I do all things curly hair tips, product reviews and styling. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you the 6 things that you need to eliminate from your routine in order to see as much length as possible with your fine natural hair. The first one that I'm going to touch on is shrunken styles. So any sort of wash and go style, you are going to want to eliminate. Now, this one's a little bit contradictory because ultimately, we would think that wash and goes are the most natural state our hair is in, and being that it is in its natural state, it should grow and retain length because we're not really doing much to it, right? Wrong. If you've got fine natural hair, then you know the fact that if that hair is going to curl up on itself, that's going to give us more tangles. More tangles is more detangling, which can lead to more breakage if we don't do it correctly. So the way to eliminate that as much as possible is we utilize stretched styles. So anything that is going to allow your hair to dry in maybe a bit of a stretched state and not be shrunken up. So things like twists, braids, even blow drying the hair to stretch it a little bit more and wearing some sort of protective style like that. Now, that's not me saying stop doing wash and goes completely, because there definitely is a way to retain length if you do wash and goes, but it's just going to be that little bit more effort and work to make sure that the hair doesn't dry out at all and it doesn't get tangled. You really need to stay on top of your game if you're doing wash and goes and you're trying to retain length with fine natural hair, because speaking from experience, I also did this. I was able to see some success. At the minute, I'm still at bra strap length, which is very long for some people. However, for me, trying to get to waist length, wash and goes have not been something that have helped me achieve length retention. So at the minute, I'm prioritizing twists and braids. The second thing you're going to want to eliminate is air drying. Now again, I'm not saying air drying is completely bad. It is not at all. Air drying is probably the best way to dry your hair if your hair dries within a good amount of time. Leaving the hair wet for a prolonged period of time can actually cause the hair to weaken, and being that we have finer strands, this is so much easier to break than someone with coarse hair. And I see this so often with people who have maybe coarse hair. They'll just slick their hair back into a bun, the hair will be dripping wet, and it's still wet throughout the day, but it's absolutely fine because the hair's maybe a bit stronger than ours. Our hair is already at a disadvantage, being that it is a lot thinner and finer than a coarse hair strand. So things like air drying for too long can cause our hair to weaken and break off a lot easier, especially if you live in a hard water area. So what I would recommend if you do want to air dry is that during your wash day, you dry your hair an adequate amount. You dry the excess water off your hair so it's not dripping wet, and the products that you use are maybe not saturating it too much to the point where, say, you're doing twists and you're going to bed with wet or damp twists. So for me, what I like to do at the moment is I have been doing my twist still in a damp state, but then after that I will use my bonnet with a hair drying attachment just to finish off the drying process with a cool heat, and I will just sit under that for about 20 minutes just to make sure the hair gets a good head start on drying itself and it doesn't remain in that weakened state and that wet state for too long. The third thing you want to eliminate is you're going to want to stop just doing moisturizing deep conditioners. Moisturizing deep conditioners, although in the hair community we hear so much about moisture all of the time, and we should be moisturizing throughout the week or moisturizing with deep conditioner. I'm not saying that's wrong. However, with fine hair, we can struggle with moisture and protein and that balance. And if you're doing just moisture deep conditioners every single week, that can actually make your hair a lot more elastic and flexible to the point where it's almost too moisturized, and then it can break as a result. So what we want to do is prioritize both protein and moisture in our hair care routine. Try 1 week do a moisture based deep conditioner, then maybe the next week do a protein based deep conditioner, and just see how you get on with that. I'm not somebody who uses a very heavy protein treatment often. I'm not an Afro G 2-step kind of girl every month, but what I do use is the Sheer Moisture Protein Power every other week, and it is light enough for me to use that frequently, but also strong enough for me to still see the benefits of using it once every other week. So that protein and moisture balance is really important for us fine haired girls. The fourth thing you're going to want to eliminate is skipping trims. Don't make the same mistake that I did and go 6 months between your trim, and then you get to the hairdressers and your hair's broken. Granted, I think it was down to some of the things I've mentioned in the video, i.e. not doing enough protein treatments, but at the same time, I really do see when girls with fine hair stretch the trims that little bit too long, the ends are just tore up, and it's really not worth it. If you're trying to retain length, yes, we need to hold on to as much length as possible, but at the same time, it's no good if your ends are all ratty and wispy. We need them to be full and thick, and being that we have fine hair as it is, the ends road is still gonna look a little bit thinner than someone who has coarse hair anyway. So the thickness is something that we want to make sure is from like the root to the tip as much as possible. So making sure you've got a good routine with trims is something that is going to be really important for you to see good length retention. Number 5 is only using a moisturizing shampoo. Do not be one of those people who avoid sulfates and avoids all of these stripping shampoos because your hair feels dry. Your hair needs to be clarified of all of the buildup, especially if you're someone who maybe does do protective styles, adding moisture onto the hair, and we need to reset that. So the only way you can do this is getting yourself some sort of clarifying shampoo. You don't need to do this every single week if it doesn't serve you, but you do need to make sure that you are building it into your routine, because with fine hair, it can get built up very quickly, as I mentioned before, and we need to ensure the scalp is clean and healthy and balanced. And some of these moisturizing shampoos and gentle cleansers just don't do enough to remove the product off your hair. They are quite useful to go in after you've used your clarifying shampoo if you feel like your hair is a little bit stripped. But ultimately, we want to reset the hair and the scalp. We want the products off the hair, and we want to be able to use our new set of products and really see the benefit of those products, because our hair is now clean and our cuticle is open, so we can receive all of the benefits from the products that we use. I'm someone who actually, if possible, I would use a clarifying shampoo every single week. I really like the K18 detox shampoo, and I think for me that's perfect. I can use it once and it can reset my hair, and ultimately in the past I have used it every single week when it comes to washing, because I really just love the feeling of a clean scalp and strands that are just free from product. The final and 6th thing that you want to eliminate from your routine if you have fine hair is high tension styling. Now, high tension styles for fine hair can be detrimental because we are at a disadvantage with the fact that our hair is already not in its strongest state in terms of the strands. So if you are putting a lot of tension on your hair frequently, it is going to encourage more breakage than you actually want. The best way to avoid this is just do not do high tension styling, and do your own hair if possible, because you know the amount of tension that you can place on your hair and what is tight and what is not tight, especially when it comes to braids. I like to use braids and do my hair, and I like to do my braids myself, but I don't do these too tight and to the point where my hair's actually breaking Often when we go to hairdressers and things like that, that's when we see a lot of breakage occur because the stylist does it that little bit too tight, and maybe we get added hair and then we can't moisturize properly and things like that. The best way to avoid this is just don't do tight, high tension styling. Do not over manipulate the hair too often. So things like slick buns, you don't want to do. Anything that's slicking and pulling and getting it nice and flat laid to the head too often is going to cause more damage than good. Obviously, the things I mentioned in the video are all relative to you. If you're doing something like you're using heat once a year, that's not going to make your hair fall out and break off. If you're doing a slick bun once every month or once every 2 weeks, it's not going to make your hair break and fall out. It's just doing those things too often is then going to make your hair maybe break, and you're then not going to see as much length retain. So it's just all in moderation. A lot of the things we do, we can have fun with our hair, we can embrace it, we can wear wash and goes and things like that, but what we need to just make sure is that a lot of the time, majority of the time, it is done in the best interests of our hair, and then we can have fun on those odd occasions where we maybe want to slick our hair or go out and wear our hair nice and big and things like that. So definitely the main thing to take away is do as many of these things as you can most of the time, with the exception that it's not always going to be perfect. Let me know in the comments how you found this video and if you use any of the tips that I mentioned for your fine natural hair, and I will see you in the next video.